Okay guys, let's move on to biosecurity. Biosecurity refers to taking actions to protect natural flora and fauna, so animals, plants and animals, and biological enterprises. It thus plays a role in keeping Australia's agricultural industry in an opportunistic state, for example, through the prevention of the introduction of diseases such as BSE, as well as the contamination of GM seeds and with non-GM varieties. So we talked about what happens if the BT cotton bred with another weed, for example. That would be horrendous. The latter is a rather important issue as there is concern with the health security of GM food and the freedom of choice for farmers who want to grow non-GM varieties, especially organic farmers. Once they are contaminated with GM seeds, it's very hard to completely remove it. Biosecurity is the responsibility of individuals, farms and businesses, regions and Australia nationally. GM seeds can be transported into Australia from overseas countries by animals, humans and export shipments. So we talked about this in earlier videos, the border security stuff. There is concern from the spilling of containers. National quarantine procedures have been set up to minimise the risk. On an individual level, contamination of GM seeds can happen simply by handling seeds and sharing transport trucks and equipment with non-GM varieties. GM seeds may be spread by animals such as birds and through sewage systems. So biosecurity is a really important field and part of the government's main objective to stop the spread of these diseases, because they could have the potential to collapse a whole industry. So potential threats. So these are threats that could happen in Australia. We talked about foot and mouth, that was in the UK. The Varroa mite, we talked about ages ago when we were talking about bees. But I'll go through these potential risks and what they can do. So potential threats: the citrus canker to horticulture is a bacterial disease affecting native and introduced citrus species. It causes lesions and cankers at infection site and severely impacts fruit quality and yield. Could have major financial impacts on the New South Wales horticulture industry and disrupt international and domestic markets. The brown marmorated stink bug to horticulture. The brown marmorated stink bug, the BMST, is an invasive pest globally. So it's found in the US, Europe and Asia. It feeds on a wide range of fruiting plants, ornamentals and vegetables, and causes severe damage to fruit. Establishment of BMST in Australia will directly affect on farm production and profitability through reducing quality and yield of fruit. As well, BMST would be difficult and expensive to manage and disrupt domestic and international markets. Rice blast. Rice blast is considered the most important disease of rice worldwide. Rice blast is present in the tropical wetlands of northern Australia but not New South Wales. Rice blast spores can infect plants at all growth stages, from seedlings to maturity, and causes lesions seen on all above ground plant parts, which results in plant death. If untreated, rice blast will kill all infected plants, causing severe losses in productivity. Spores overwinter in rice straw, contaminate vehicles, water and are windborne. Treatment is through burning infected crops. So that's a highly infectious disease. It can be transported a number of ways, which is really bad. The Varroa mites, which have decimated honeybees worldwide. We discussed when we're talking about maybe getting hives. Varroa mites are the most serious pest of honeybees worldwide. Varroa infects honeybees in every major beekeeping area in the world except Australia. The pest, untreated, will kill a colony or hive, which will have an economic impact through less honey production, and serious environmental impact on bee pollination is reduced and impact other plant production systems. Foot and mouth disease. I spoke to you guys about foot and mouth. It was huge in the UK. I remember as a kid. We were supposed to go on a field trip to the Lake District, but we weren't allowed to go. People were burning their cattle to kill them and burn the bodies. It's just horrendous. So definitely don't want that here in Australia. Foot and mouth disease, FMD, is a highly contagious viral disease that affects pigs, cattle, sheep, goats and deer caused by swill feeding. It does not occur in Australia, luckily. The disease is characterised by the formation of vesicles, fluid-filled blisters, and erosions in the mouth and nostrils, on the teats, and on the skin between and above the hooves. FMD may cause serious production losses and is a major constraint to international trade in livestock and their products. An outbreak of FMD, foot-and-mouth disease, in Australia would result in the closure of meat, dairy and wool export markets until the outbreak was eradicated. So think back to the export value of beef alone, $7 billion. So you wouldn't be able to export any beef if this happened. So to have a massive, catastrophic, economic effect. It would disrupt domestic markets, as infective animals must be euthanized to eradicate the disease. You can't treat them, you must kill your stock. So let's just hope that never happens here. Current threats, so threats that do exist in Australia. One that we've spoke about at length is serrated tussock. Is a highly adapted wheat of national significance. Serrated tussock infests agricultural land, ranging from highly arable and fertile areas through to steep and non-arable areas with low fertility. So basically, if you're trying to grow crops or even raise sheep, it doesn't matter, you'll get tussock there. It colonises both native and introduced pastures, and it spreads rapidly in degraded or disturbed pastures. It is not palatable and has low feed value for livestock. It is a serious contaminant of hay and grain and transported on agricultural machinery. It negatively impacts domestic markets, reducing product quality and value, if present as a contaminant. It reduces productivity and availability of agricultural land and disrupts native ecosystems. Blackberries. You see these big massive bushes everywhere. Blackberries are semi-deciduous scrambling shrubs with prickly stems. Blackberries are a weed of national significance and recognised as one of the worst Australian weeds. Blackberry infests agricultural land and colonises both native and introduced pastures, reducing grazing and productivity, harbouring vermin and causing problems in forestry. It spreads rapidly, vegetatively or through seed distribution. It is not palatable and has low feed value for livestock. However, the berries are consumed and seeds distributed by birds, vermin and humans. It reduces productivity and availability of agricultural land and disrupts native ecosystems. Blackberry has been estimated to result in a loss of production and cost of control of between $95.1 million and $102.8 million in Australia. Foot rot in sheep and goats. Foot rot is a contagious bacterial disease of sheep and goats. With full expression, virulent foot rot is a severe, debilitating disease with significant economic loss from reduced wool growth and quality, poor ewe fertility, poor growth rates, losses from blowfly strike, and reduced value of sale sheep. In infected flocks, there is also significant costs associated with the control of the disease. It reduces the productivity and profitability and reduces the marketability, as infected animals cannot be transported or sold into quarantined areas. Leptospirosis in cattle. Leptospirosis is a highly infectious bacterial disease of cattle that can also cause debilitating effects in humans. The bacteria survive for long periods in wet conditions and are shed by infected animals in urine and uterine fluids. When cows are infected, they may abort retained fetal membranes, so they may miscarriage, or have reduced milk production. The disease is zoonotic, which means it can pass from animals to humans, causing severe illness in humans. It can be prevented through vaccination. Leptospirosis has severe economic impacts on production, yield, cow, and possibly human health. And striped rust, we talked about rust as well. Striped rust in wheat is a fungal disease which established in eastern Australia in 1979. It affects triticale, barley, barley grass, brome grass, and some other grasses. but wheat is the main host. The fungus reduces plant growth and yield by reducing the green leaf area, thus reducing plant photosynthesis. Infected plants have small, shrunken seed, spore spread by wind and vectors including machinery, agricultural products, and on livestock or humans, and the disease causes significant loss to production due to loss of yield, quality of seed, and also the cost to control it. Okay, a lot of information there. We have talked about tussock, striped rust, foot and mouth disease, and other things. So I would commit those ones to memory, do a bit of revision on those guys, and maybe add a few more examples to your repertoire. So if you're asked something about biosecurity, you have an absolute ton of examples you can use. Okay, pause here and we'll move on.